Well, Carol, thank you so much for taking the time today to be a part of our Community of Practice channel here on YouTube. And on behalf
Yep.
of SETI, I want to thank you so much for your leadership today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So we always begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your amazing work.
Absolutely. So I'm president and CEO of the Foundation of Greater Montreal. So Foundation of Greater Montreal is a community foundation in the network of about like a little over 200 community foundations across Canada. Our job, our mission is to help set up philanthropic projects, philanthropic funds to support community organizations or different causes. So we do it for individuals or for organizations, and we manage the funds, we invest the funds, and we distribute the grants according to recommendations made by those who set up funds with us. So, in a nutshell, we're a philanthropic bank, but also we have a mission. Our mission is also to support the community. So we also have our own unrestricted grants that we can distribute in the community that are not uh, determined by our donors, but are like we have decision making power on those. So we do we focus on social equity, on ecological transition and climate. And across the board, we make sure that at least half of our grants go to underserved or equity-seeking communities, including indigenous people, um, racialized communities, immigrants, women, people with different functional limitations. That's how we say it in France. I'm not sure about the exact wording in English. And we're very happy because last year we were at about 75% of our grants going to these people in number and 80% in value. So so we're trying to go where philanthropy doesn't normally go.
That's so needed. Wow, that's awesome. We thank you for that. And so, like, what inspires you about the work that you do?
What inspires me about a community foundation is that each community foundation is different. Like they're all kind of the same thing, but they when you meet a community foundation, you've learned about one community foundation, and you go to see the next one. There are similarities, but it's really that we are place-based. We're rooted in the community, and we have different tools with which we can do things. We have a convening power. We have some legitimacy. We do studies and reports, and also we can mobilize philanthropic capital, philanthropic funds. And so by using these tools and by being innovative, we can actually bring philanthropy in places it didn't go in the past. And that's really what inspires me. It's like, how can we use philanthropy to be more transformational, uh, and to try to have an impact that lasts beyond just giving money. And I think that's something that's very inspiring because like that combination of being place-based and being innovative, I think creates conditions by which we can innovate and do these things and seek more justice. And so I really love the fact I used to be an environmental activist. That was my job before I joined the Foundation of Greater Montreal. It's always been important for me to feel that I'm having an impact, that I'm changing the world in better ways. So I feel that's very inspiring that I have like these tools, financial tools, but other tools to do the same in the community with the community foundation. So yeah, that's what inspires me.
That's so good. I mean, that's part of the work. We always have the passion and the purpose to do these things, in order to make change. And
Sure.
that's that's exactly what our mission is. And it's great to collab like this because, collaboration is the key to social change, and that's how we're going to
Absolutely.
get that. So great. So what
Definitely, definitely.
challenges, what challenges or barriers have you faced, and how have you
Um,
overcome them or in the process of
mhm.
overcoming them?
So I'm lucky because like if you talk to some foundations across the country, they'll tell you that maybe their board is not necessarily aligned with what they want to do. And I'm lucky enough to have a board that's very progressive in its attitude towards what we can achieve and what we can do and the values that we want to put forward as an organization. And so I don't feel I have like limitations to what we can achieve as an organization. And I feel very privileged for that. The challenges are always to convince more donors to come and work with us in that great kind of adventure that we've started, like on that path towards having a transformational impact. It's still difficult for us because we're not necessarily known as we maybe at the extent to the extent we should be. So that's one limitation because we could do a lot more if we had, let's say, 10 times more donors working with us. And there are literally 10 or 100 times more donors in our community who set up donor advised funds in banks and elsewhere that could work with us, but they just don't know we exist. So that's like a significant challenge. The other challenge is we've said in our last strategic plan that there's only one set of values for the entire organization. So we don't have like values when we grant money and different values when we invest money, which is really what happens for most, like in the philanthropic world, people invest money only thinking about returns and risks and fees. And then they grant money with all sorts of good values, but there's no connection between the two. And we said for us, it's important that if we seek social justice, we're going to seek social justice in the way we invest money, our endowment. If we seek a reconciliation with First Nations, Indigenous people, we're going to make sure that we don't encroach on their rights in the way we invest our money. So basically, and I could go on, same thing with climate change and other things. The thing is, financial markets are not set up in a way to facilitate this through like appropriate information. So it's very difficult for us to know exactly where we are invested. Our endowment is about $500 million, and it's a challenge. And we seem to be building the plane as we're flying it. And so I'd love to be in a position where I could tell people, like I know for sure for a fact that no dollar that's managed by the Foundation of Greater Montreal has been used to violate, indigenous rights. It's very difficult for me to say that because I'm not sure if I have all the information. So we have a limit, like it's really a systemic limitations in the way financial markets work. And I could go on, like there are always challenges, but so our job is really to keep kind of pushing the boundaries and kind of proving to other foundations that this can be done and they can have a greater impact by working to align their investment, their endowments with their values.
Absolutely. We definitely will invite you to our Solidarity Working Group meeting because these are, it's, one of many topics that we discuss, in the social finance space and social equity and those things like that. So we'll definitely give you an invite. I know Victor will definitely give you an invite when our next one is
Sure.
coming up, I think, in a couple months. So yeah, so for sure. So
Absolutely.
do you have anything that you want to amplify right now? Any key priorities?
Right now, what we're like the next big thing for us is we're trying to set up an impact investment fund that would be again place-based, not a theme. It wouldn't be on climate change or on affordable housing or other themes. It would be different themes, but all in Montreal. And our goal is to convince other foundations and donors in Montreal that they should invest part of their philanthropic assets in the community in an impact investment vehicle that would invest in affordable housing, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, supporting social enterprises, I don't know, like community bonds and all these different things that we can do with impact investment, but locally. And the pitch is really simple. It's like you should make sure that at least 2% or 5% of your endowment of your philanthropic assets get invested in the community where they came from. I mean, it just makes sense. It's common sense. Instead of investing that money, I don't know, in like U.S. stocks in companies like Amazon or Meta or whichever companies, like so. If you look at an endowment, like most communities, most foundations are trying. I shouldn't say most, but like many foundations are trying to integrate impact investment in the way they invest their endowments. And so what we're saying is um, part of that impact investment should be in the community where the money came from. And it's a way to give back to the community that is additional to the grants that you can make in your community. It's a way to make that to have your dollar, your philanthropic dollar, work twice. So it works while it's getting invested. It will provide returns, and then you can grant the money. So we're trying to change a little bit the way we think about investing philanthropic funds, but to give it more impact locally. So that's the next big thing, and it's challenging because um, it means we need to educate, elevate the level of knowledge that people have of impact investing, because most people only see traditional investment and grants. But in between these two things, you have impact investing, and it's another tool in our toolbox that is underutilized at this point. So we're trying to make it simple for foundations in our community. Instead of trying to each of them figure out how they should do things, we're going to set up a fund, and that fund will kind of make it simpler to them to invest in the community through impact investment. So that's the next big thing. It's really it's a great challenge. I think it's a $1 billion idea. I think over time it will grow and have a lasting impact in the community. To give you an example, just my foundation grants $1.5 million. That's the grants that we control. So unrestricted granting for us is 1.5 million. We donate 17 million a year or 20 million, but these grants are made by people who set up funds with us, and so we respect their recommendations. So all we have is 1.5 million for us to have an impact. If I set up an impact fund, we could have 100 million in 2 years that we could invest in the community. And that $100 million would be additional because otherwise it would have been invested in US stocks or Canadian stocks. And we would bring it back in the community. So for us, it's equivalent to 70 years of grants that we could do over a few years. So it's such a powerful tool that we could have. So I'm very excited by this project.
See, that's exactly why even about the Solidarity Working Group, like you can actually present that to the group, and then
Sure.
you'll have, collaborators that would love that idea and see how we can bring that into fruition. So I love it. I love that idea. I think
Yeah.
it'd be very impactful in community. That's great.
Yeah. Sure.
So let me ask you, how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
Um, so being an environmentalist, I'm not very, very optimistic about what the future holds for us because I know that like we're gonna have climate related impacts that's gonna translate in economic impacts and political impacts, and we're already seeing the beginning of that. And I think social impact work and social impact investment is a way to make our communities more resilient. So it's a way to use money in a different way. So instead of and it comes back to what I was just saying. Instead of investing money in speculative markets, you invest money in the real economy that actually provides services, respond to real needs of people today. And it's kind of your secondary engine. When your main economic engine starts having problems and it's not necessarily working the way it should work, well, you have this auxiliary engine that actually supports the community. So I'm really I really see a lot of potential in building community resilience by having money circulate and services circulating in communities, by building local economies, by building cooperatives, social economic enterprises, by having like an economy that for the people, by the people. And so we're better prepared not only to respond to the needs of today, but also to respond to the needs of tomorrow. So I really see a lot of potential in this.
Right. I agree with you for sure. On environmental level, you see a lot of disparities happening, a lot of what they call natural disasters. I
Hmm.
just think it's,
Nothing's natural anymore.
exactly. Like, how do you put it in words, But definitely, when we see generations coming and they are, it just brings me hope. And I'm seeing more and more young people actually getting into more environmental jobs, even on an
Sure.
agricultural level, trying to
Uh-huh.
restore agriculture again, which is amazing, and having
Yeah.
real food to be grown again for generations
Yeah,
to come. So,
exactly.
yeah.
And building like the knowledge that we need to have to grow food,
Hmm.
just that I think is an asset that's invaluable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like who thought, like, oh, basic, like now Canada, for instance, is
Hmm.
begging for construction workers and
Yeah.
anybody in those type of organic fields. And back then it was looked like, oh, that's a poor man's job. Oh, that's no kids wanted to do
Yeah.
that. But now
Mm.
it's so sought after, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Sure.
how the world spins. But we're hopeful at the end of the day. We try to be anyway. All
Hmm.
right. So what would be, if you were to summarize, like, what would be your ultimate goal and what does success look like to you?
Um, I'm 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 very ambitious. So my let's say my moon goal would be that say in 10 or 15 years from now, 100% of philanthropic funds are invested in impact investment. So generating positive impacts for the environment, for the people, generating returns, so financial returns, but also strong impacts on health, education, environment, all of these things. So that basically those assets that have been given, and that like when you give $1 to a foundation, you receive 50 cents at least, and sometimes even more, like 80 or 90 cents on your dollar in tax exemption from the government. So so my hope is my moon goal would be that that money that's been supported by government gets reinvested not in speculative markets, financial markets, but in the real world, in our communities. And that would bring so much oxygen to organizations and people who need it now. So let's just imagine, like, just in Montreal, we have about 20 or $25 billion in philanthropic assets. Say that we are kind of ambitious and imaginative, and we say, okay, we're just going to take 5 billion out of that 20 billion, so about a quarter or a fifth, and we say, okay, let's build houses for people. I mean, it's doable. We have the financial models. We have the intermediaries, the social organizations who can actually deliver on this. So we have everything we need. But all we need is capital. All we need is the assets. And we could do this, let's say, with a return that's about 4%. And that would make a whole lot of a difference. But the thing is, people say, no, I want to have 8% of return so I can grant more money. And I'm like, think about it differently. Maybe you're going to grant a little less, but instead of having only a tiny portion of your endowment that goes to the community, you're going to have a big portion of your endowment that is invested in the community. So therefore, it's not a problem if you grant a little less, because overall, through impact investing, you will have provided a shelter to so many more people than anything you could do with grants. So my main goal would be really that philanthropy would shift from kind of a traditional investment granting system to an impact value proposition that looks at investment and granting as a continuum and uses 100% of resources to support mission instead of just using right now, like the only obligation we have is to grant 5% of our assets. And it doesn't matter whether it's 3.5, 5, 6, 7, or 4%. What matters is what we're doing with the 90 or 95% of the assets that are there, but I think are underutilized for impact. So that's my main goal.
Makes 100% sense. I mean, that's been the issue of Canada all along, is food security, housing security, and these things, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. So, yeah, like you're saying, allocating those funds into these spaces. I mean, that shouldn't even be a second thought. That shouldn't even be a second blink, It's just like, we see the issue, we have the means, let's get it done. Period.
Yeah.
So again, we need more voices like yourself to really get that out
and you
there.
know what? Like one of the main obstacles is our own frames of thinking. It's the way we
Yes.
think about these issues. And it's very difficult to actually think out of the box. I mean, we hear a lot of people saying we want to think out of the box, but when you really think out of the box, that's when you get resistance. Otherwise, when people say that they think about, like, when people say I'm thinking out of the box and they don't have resistance, it's really because I think they're not thinking out of the box really.
That's right. Absolutely. I love that. I love that, because that box to me is in the Matrix, if you've seen,
Yeah.
the boxes
Absolutely.
that are outside of the, the Matrix is, yeah, that's really the outside, and exactly what you said, you'll get the pushback because you're stepping outside the box. You're not supposed to,
No.
the agents will come for you,
But it's a lot more fun. It
It's
makes
so
a
much more fun.
much more interesting movie.
I love it. Oh, Carol, this has been
Yeah.
so amazing. If you can just close with your thoughts and calls to actions at this time.
Let's make sure we don't leave $1 of impact on the table. Let's make sure each philanthropic dollar maximizes its impact. That's all we need to do. There's so much money. There's $135 billion in Canada of philanthropic capital, 135 billion. That's like 100 billion more than 12 years ago. So it's growing, and growing. And right now it's essentially feeding financial markets. It shouldn't be this way. So let's just kind of roll up our sleeves and do something about it.
Absolutely. I love this interview. This has been amazing, very insightful.
Thanks.
And we'll send you an invite for our solidarity work, because this needs to be, like, I'm sure a lot of, some people are aware in the same sector, but it doesn't matter. It needs to be, permeated over and over again into the mind till they actually understand the real meaning of this and what huge impact it can have in community. So, Carol, once
Absolutely.
again, yes, I thank you so much, and
Thanks to
we
you.
will we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So this isn't a goodbye. This is a see you later. Okay. I appreciate your
Absolutely.
time and your leadership.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay.
You take
Good.
care.
All the best. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.